Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell. It's early. It's Wednesday, August 18th, or pardon me, August 19th, 2015. I'm a day early today because over the next several weeks, folks, I have a crush of activities and I'm going to be trying to keep up with my news and views, but the day and time might be varying somewhat from its normal Thursday. Besides that, I had several people send me some articles that I had to talk about because I was looking for things about China to do today because I was looking at a very short article that really just kind of rocked my world. And when I finished this article, I opened up my email and somebody had sent me yet another article about China because the Chinese branch of the Nefarium has been very busy this week. There are two stories I want to read you from Xinhua, that's Communist China's official news agency. And these two stories are really big. I want you to listen very carefully to them and put them in the context of what I've been suggesting, the kind of hypothesis I've been suggesting that the United States has been positioning its military bases now in Eastern Europe, in the old cordon sanitaire of the Baltic states, Poland, and Romania, in order to keep Europe and Russia apart and keep Europe firmly in the Western Bloc and prevent it bolting to the BRICS bloc. Because the first story that Xinhua came out with on July 30th was China and Poland pledged to increase military cooperation Thursday. A very short article. I'm going to read the whole thing. Quote, the consensus was reached when Fan Changlong, vice chairman of China's Central Military Commission, and Chinese Defense Minister Chang Wan-kwan met with visiting Polish Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Tomasz Szymanek. During the meeting, Fan hailed frequent high-level military exchanges between the countries, vowing to deepen military ties. Szymanek told him Poland wants to cooperate more with China, including in military exchanges. Now, folks, I think this might be an earthquake because the former Polish defense minister, Radek Sikorski, you recall a few years back, was the one who drove and pushed for getting American bases in Poland. And then after this came about, Mr. Sikorsky was caught on his cell phone saying that, well, even though we've got the American bases, it's not good for much. The new Polish defense minister may be signaling, I think, a long term change. And again, why have military exercises with China when you're a part of NATO and you've got American bases there? So, in my estimate, this may be um, a symbolic bit of indication, perhaps, that in the long term, the European nations are thinking that they have definitely got to deepen their ties with Asia, with the Chinese, with Russia, and perhaps reassess their whole commitment to the United States. Now, with that in mind, I want you to listen to the following story, again from Xinhua, China's news agency. And this, I think, is a real earthquake. This, folks, is a signal of more things to come. All right. This is huge. The headline here is about British and Chinese cooperation. And I want you to go down. This is dated August 13th. Um, the headline is China Beijing Yang Jiechi British Foreign Secretary Dialogue, dated August 13th. Dateline is Beijing. The British Foreign Secretary now, Philip Hammond, has been visiting Beijing to plan for an upcoming visit. Now listen, quote, Chinese President Xi will visit Britain in October at the invitation of Queen Elizabeth II. This is the first visit by a Chinese president in a decade and the most important event in bilateral ties this year. This visit will guide the long-term development of China-Britain ties and is of great significance, the Chinese State Councilor Yang Jiechi said while co-chairing a strategic dialogue with Hammond on Thursday. Now, it's that strategic dialogue more than the visit itself that really interests me because this indicates that Great Britain and China are in some very long-term plans together. And folks, when you put this together with what Secretary Fitz and I discussed on her show with the Warwicker Trilogy and so on and so forth, and the growing displeasure in Europe over American unilateralism, the British, I've been suggesting, are in a position to not only perhaps extricate themselves from underneath the American thumb, but to completely reorient the current and future geopolitics and financial politics of the world. This could be huge. Now listen carefully as this article continues. As Britain contemplates its EU membership, okay, in other words, China's coming right out and telling you right there, Britain is contemplating its future with the EU, and we, the Chinese, are stepping in and holding long-term strategic talks with the British Foreign Secretary. Folks, this is huge. I can't tell you how huge of an earthquake this is. As Britain contemplates its EU membership, it is paying more attention to markets outside the bloc. And folks, this is kind of what I've been predicting. And I fully predict now that we see this, that what I've been guessing at, that Britain is going to play the British Commonwealth card for all it's worth in the coming 2 decades. I think this is a huge development, signaling some very, very long-term commitments. All right. Britain, I think, is going to try to position itself again as the cultural leader of basically Anglo-Saxon culture, and it may even attempt to do so as the leader of Western culture. Time will tell, but this still remains huge whether Britain decides to do this or not. Britain has become the second largest trade partner for China. Let me repeat that. Britain has become the second largest trade partner for China and the top destination for Chinese investment within the EU. So again, folks, if there is going to be any break of Britain, or at least reassessment and revaluation of the British role within the EU, and here comes the kicker, within the wider Western alliance, and that's to me the key of what's going on here. I think America's hands are being slowly pried away around the throat of Western Europe. This is the reason we see all the base moving. And once Britain gets on this bandwagon, rest assured Germany and France are not going to be very far behind. I think this is huge. It's the top destination for Chinese investment within the EU. As Britain contemplates its EU membership, it is paying more attention to markets outside the bloc. And I wanted to reread that for you because this is a huge development for the European Union as well. This may be a long-term strategic assessment, in other words, by the British oligarchy, not only of their European commitments, but of their wider geopolitical commitments within the Atlantic Alliance. I think this is huge. Continuing, Britain is willing to explore cooperation with China under the Belt and Road Initiative. This is the British Foreign Secretary, and he's referring now to President Xi's proposal to build stronger economic and cultural links with countries located along the ancient Silk Road via both land and sea. Britain was the first country outside of Asia to join the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the multilateral development body that will finance infrastructure building in Asia. This has been regarded as a major step for implementing the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, there's no doubt in my mind, folks, I can hear the comments coming, well, this is just another Zionist Rothschild plot. Forget about it, folks. It is true that the British oligarchy, and that's going to include the Rothschilds and other major banking families, are going to look at all of these developments and say that we need to be involved with that. But I think the real thing that you need to bear in mind is that this is as much about Britain playing not its traditional role in Asia, but rather this is about Britain, in my opinion, reassessing its entire long-term strategy vis-a-vis the European Union, vis-a-vis the Atlantic Alliance. And I think ultimately, folks, as I've been suggesting in this talk and in previous blogs, this could be about Britain reassessing the role of the British Commonwealth in the emerging world. And that's a crucial picture. So the real problem now is Washington, D.C. This is the real problem that the financial oligarchs in the City of London have. This is the real problem that all of those ancient British oligarchical families have, is what to do about Washington, D.C. And I suspect, as Secretary Fitz suggested, I suspect that they're going to start reaching out to disgruntled elements within the American power elite. And that's going to be an interesting game. So, as I said, watch Great Britain, and no sooner, it seems like I just said this a couple months ago, and bang, here we have it from Xinhua, kind of confirming suspicions, not confirmed in the sense of proof, but just confirmed in the sense of we need to watch this developing story very, very closely. Anyway, that's it again, folks, for the news and views, early news and views this week. I'm Joseph P. Farrell, and we'll see you on the flip side, everybody. God bless.